So welcome colleagues to our first school learning and teaching seminar for 2023. I can't believe we're mid-February already. It seems to be flying. It's lovely to have you all here, and we're particularly excited for Belinda today to be running a lovely session, a combination of insights and a little bit of playing live on the screen about the hot topic of ChatGPT that is very much dominating different conversations at the moment. So thank you so much for joining us. I wish to also acknowledge the lands on which we are all clicking in on today, and particularly acknowledge our elders, past, present, and emerging. So I'm going to pass it over to Belinda so we can hear all about your insights and your experiences and your tips as well to help us contribute to this conversation, to think about it in terms of our learning and teaching. So thank you, Belinda.
Thank you. So as I was saying to Narelle just before, the people who've actually turned up or accepted this invitation are the types of people who've probably already played with ChatGPT and know exactly what it is. So noticing that, I might make the first part of this presentation shorter and the later part where we look at tips and tricks and stuff a bit longer. So as you all know, ChatGPT is a generative AI, which was released by openAI last December. And although I'm going to be using ChatGPT here as an example, we need to remember that there are a couple of other products that are going to come out and be integrated literally into search engines within the next couple of weeks. So although at the moment to get onto ChatGPT, you have to Google openAI and you have to find their website and sign up and so forth. Very soon, these products are going to be integrated into search engines. So the technology, generative AI technology, is going to be pervasive. And you know, that's part of the reason why I'll recommend at the end of it that we don't ban it. We've got no choice. This is going to be as accessible and pervasive as web search is. So we need to work out how to integrate it into our teaching. Yeah. So I'll show you how I think I'm going to do that. I'm not entirely sure if it will work, but we really have to experiment. We have to experiment with this. And the thing about it, sorry, I'll just share screen. I can't just immediately go in there, can I? The thing about it is it really actually is an incredible tool. For people who've played around with it, you'll already understand how incredibly creative it is. It has so much potential for use in teaching. And it goes without saying that our students, particularly in media and communications, but I'd also argue in the rest of the humanities, we're in the business of a type of content creation. And by the time these students graduate, any type of content creation is going to be augmented by AI. That's just whether it's with images or text. So just to prepare you for what I'm going to argue. So yeah, the best way to learn about it is to play with it. So we'll play with it a little bit further in. I just want to explain, first of all, the limits of it, as well as the possibilities. So as you know, when you're integrating any new technology into your teaching or your practice, you kind of work within the limits of it, as well as the possibilities. And the limits of ChatGPT, so I haven't played with Bard yet. I haven't played with Google's product because that's not yet integrated into the search engine, although it will be soon. So I'm only talking here about ChatGPT. So ChatGPT generates content based on a data set that it has crawled, and that the cutoff date for that data set is 2021. I've been trying to work out when in 2021 that is exactly, because it matters, but it is quite cagey about when in 2021 it is. So any literature that's published in your field after that date won't be in the data set. And this is useful because you can set questions that are within that cutoff date. If you want to just avoid using ChatGPT, I'll recommend against that. But so another limitation of it, a pretty serious limitation, which again we can use as a teaching tool, is that it has massive accuracy problems. It's so I'll show you some examples of where it literally makes up references. It can make up completely fictional references. So it worryingly integrates factual information with the misinformation. So it's difficult to distinguish between the two. And because the text product that it generates is so articulate, it's incredible. It's hard to tell apart what's made up and what's not made up. However, before I scare everyone, I'd argue that as experts in our field, we're actually even more equipped than really anybody else to pick up what has been invented and what is not invented, for example. And that is also arguably a skill we want to communicate to students. So here's an example of, I've got an essay question that I want to set this year. And it's on the News Media Bargaining Code, which I think is one of the most important pieces of legislation in my field and in the field of digital media that's happened in Australia in the last couple of years. So if you ask ChatGPT about this, it literally generates references by people that don't exist, and the articles don't exist. Yeah, it's kind of funny. It's like you've got it on the spot. You're asking within the cutoff date. That makes it even more likely it'll generate misinformation. And it's creating this stuff. So another thing it does, so the News Media Bargaining Code has in fact been implemented already. It's law, it's happening. And you can see that at the beginning of this answer, it has just said that it hasn't actually happened yet. So the problems with ChatGPT, that it has a limited data set that cuts off in 2021, and also that it is not reliable in terms of the information that it spits out. That said, it is pretty incredible. It's pretty incredible. So I would highly recommend playing with it. I'm just going to show you a little bit how to, I'll stick this up here because it's kind of in the way, how to play with it. So you can access it. Oh, that's not going to help, is it? All right. So you can access it at openai.com. Sometimes you can't access it. It's there's too many people trying to get at it. So you can actually subscribe for $20 a month down in the bottom left-hand corner here, so that you've always got access to it if you want to. And essentially you can just talk to it like a person that you're having a conversation with, and you type your question down in the bottom here, and it will generate some quite incredible responses. So let's just start with one of those before we, what can we start with that'll be funny? Okay, so Okay, so I'm asking it to explain ChatGPT to us, but in a slightly funny way. And you can see that it instantly generates a response here. It could be incredibly useful in creative arts as well, because you can basically ask it to be Groucho Marx, or ask it to be in the style of pretty much anything. So it generates text which is quite articulate. And you can see already the problems that this presents if we have essay questions, which I'll talk about in a minute. But I'll just show you some of the functionality of it. So because ChatGPT kind of works in the form of a discussion, it remembers the previous parts of that same discussion. So we've started a discussion here, a new discussion, but you can see I've had in the top left-hand corner, you can kind of toggle between different conversations up here. And it will remember the content of that discussion. And this is important because you can refine work this way. So for example, in the response that I've given you here, if I wanted it to include references, I would say, revise that answer, but include, let's say academic references. Yeah, so it will then revise the answer to include academic references. There is no guarantee that those academic references actually exist, and that even if they do exist, and sometimes there are legitimate references included in there, it's not very good at understanding the context of quotes, citations, or arguments. So I have heard that Bard, which is Google's competitor, is going to be a lot better at in-text citation and understanding context, but I've yet to play with that. So another thing you can do is, I don't know, you need to do it within 300 words. So revise that answer in 300 words. So you can keep going like this and edit. It's good for editing your own work, but you can also see how a student, for example, could refine an essay answer. Okay, so one of the things I'll recommend that you do is run your assessment pieces through ChatGPT. Some of them will be answered quite well. So I've got one here that was answered quite well, an old assessment piece of mine. So what is the spectrum problem, and how are cellular networks and government regulation intended to help with this? And the answer that it's given here is it's a passable answer. Yeah, so this particular question is not asking for references, but if it was an essay question and it needed references, you could actually ask for references. So here's an example. So this is my proposed new essay question. And you can see the answers that it's generating here. And it's generated, again, fictional references. It's kind of funny, really. But the good thing about it in terms of student work is it gives the piece of writing a structure. It starts with an introduction, and then it defines its terms, and then it has argument, and it has usually quite a nice conclusion. Okay, let me go back here. So it's a really useful tool. and you're going to need to run all of your assessment pieces through it. So let's go back to screen sharing, actually, because I've got more slides. Okay, so what I've worked out, and I'm not like a guru on assessment or anything like this, I'm just a geek who kind of likes playing around with stuff, that's all, is that what will work right now with ChatGPT, I've got no idea if it will work with Bard, is if you use the cutoff date. So set assessment pieces that are asking about a topic that has changed recently or that has relevance right now. That will help. Also require, we do this anyway, so it's not really much of a change, but require in-text citation and academic referencing. And when you or your tutors are marking it, all they need to do is check those references, perhaps a little more thoroughly than usual, because some of them will literally be fictional. And if the fictional references have been left in, that is an indication that ChatGPT has been used. It is, I would also advise, best to just get students to admit upfront they're using ChatGPT and allow them to use it. So another thing that you can do is ask students to critically evaluate things. And the reason you ask them to critically evaluate things is not just because that's what we do at uni, that's what we want them to learn, but also because AIs are not very good at this right now. So they're not very good at comparing different scenarios and contextualizing arguments. They're not good at that. Another thing you can do is use the tool in tutorials to write the outline of an essay, for example, and you can show them the inaccuracies that come up and kind of teach them how to distinguish between the misinformation and the information in there which is factual. So it can also be used to edit and proofread your own work as well as the work of student. So I've just put a little asterisk next to the first point because I don't personally think that this cutoff date is going to last much longer. I don't think Bard, for example, will have it. So in terms of a plan, and I'll show you what I've done, again, who knows if it's the best solution, it's just the one I've come up with. So run all your assessment items through. If they can be passively answered, they need to be revised or change the type of assessment, because the reality is this will be in every search engine and, you know, quite pervasive in the next couple of weeks. So, yep, you can revise questions to sit within the cutoff date, and I'll give you an example of that. And ask students to read current literature on the topic. So this is easier for us in media and communications because our topics tend to be quite timely anyway. It might be a bit more difficult if you're teaching in the sciences or history, for example. So start planning new assessment items if you have an essay. And preferably incorporate the tool in the short-term plan and the long-term plan. So the long-term plan also includes a revision of how we teach. This technology is going to transform absolutely everything, and not just content, but it will transform the way we teach as well. So I would start thinking about how you can integrate it in your work, your daily work, and the way you teach. So the students that we teach at any rate are going to be going into an industry. For example, I teach social media. They're going to be going into an industry where almost all of the content is going to be generated by AI. And you could argue that it will be the same for journalism. So we need to accept this and work with it. So can we integrate this tool into tasks in creative ways, in ways where the student can still receive or work on the skills that we're trying to communicate as educators? So I'll just show you an example of what I'm planning to do. Who knows if it's the right answer. So this is an essay. And what I've done is set the actual, a 1,000 to 1,200 word essay, I've set the actual question to fall within the cutoff period. So what this means is that when it's put into ChatGPT, it will render the type of answer that I just showed you before, that has lots of fictional references, misinformation, kind of sewn into and in many ways indistinguishable from the factual information. So I'm actually thinking this will be useful, particularly if it has a messy result like that, because we can sit in the tutorials and go through it and explain, no, that date's inaccurate. The law is actually in place right now. That's a fictional reference, that one there. That is a real existing reference, for example. So you could go through it in the tutorials. So I've also got them to, we do this anyway in media and comms, and I'm sure throughout the rest of the university, required them to use a minimum of a number of scholarly references. Again, ChatGPT is really bad at this. So students are going to need to know the topic before they generate their response in ChatGPT. So just in case they're not aware of that, I've actually just put a thing in here saying, yes, you can use ChatGPT. That's if you want to. But be aware, and I'll show them too, that it generates fictional references and misinformation, and it's going to be hard to distinguish between that and the factual information. So take responsibility for the piece of text that you hand in, and it's best for you to research the topic yourself first in order to be able to distinguish between what is factual and what is not factual, for example. And I think as a university, we've decided that we're also going to get them to declare the use of ChatGPT on the cover sheet. So this is my short-term plan, which is to try to set an essay, just because I think having an essay where you have to actually go and independently research and in theory write something is useful as a pedagogical tool. Now, if the product that Google releases in a couple of weeks or implements within its search engine does not have a cutoff date, and if it's better with in-text citation than ChatGPT, I don't think that this is going to work for me, this essay question. So I will have to run the alternative that I've been running as a kind of experiment for a while now, which is where I get students to take over a social media account of a business and run that for 4 weeks using the information that I give them in the course. So the way that I would integrate ChatGPT in this instance is to ask them to use it to generate their posts for them if they want to use it. They don't have to use it, but it's actually quite good at doing exactly this, at generating, where are we? At generating content for social media. So here's an example from when I was mucking around with it earlier. So I was imagining the student, for example, had taken over the social media account of a local health organisation, and they were thinking about a vaccination for seasonal flu. So if the student is not feeling very funny at the time, or they can just ask ChatGPT literally to create the best possible tweet for that command. So there's so many ways that you can use the tool to augment and supplement what you're intending to do when you're creating content. Even after you've created content, or after students who've created content, they can then use that tool to refine it. And I think I've got to the limit of my knowledge on ChatGPT. Oh, no, I haven't. Okay. So I'll just share the screen again. I've got a shockingly messy desktop. Sorry, that's just gross. All right, so that's the long-term plan. Now, there are some tools to detect AI in student work. One of them was released by openAI. I can send these slides out afterwards. You can access them. There's another one called AI Cheat Check. These are not accurate. So I've actually put my own work into them, and it's come back saying that I'm an AI or vice versa. So it's, yeah, they're not reliable. And additionally, we don't really know where those essays or where that student work goes. So we don't really know if AI Cheat Check is keeping these essays, for example. So I guess I'd say don't rely on those. It's best to, in my opinion, maybe change the assessment so that they're harder, or that they can integrate, so you can integrate the tool. Okay, I hope that was useful.
That was great, Belinda. Thank you. Really, really informative. And we can see by the engagement in the chat as we've been going along, there's been a lot of different thoughts and bouncing off of what you've shared as well.